Declan, how are you? How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, very well. As good as can be expected in the current climate. So yeah, not bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you, really well. So we're working with you in a small way, part of your big ambitious project or program to revolutionise diversity in the games industry, which is so exciting. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing with it with Intergames at the moment. What's your vision for the games industry, and what are you trying in terms of working with young people in a different way?
So Into Games is quite a new organization. We only started about 2 years ago. Maybe there was a few months lead into that kind of launch, and I kind of myself and my co-founder Kirsty Rigdon, who's been in the games industry for the last 20 years, um, saw that there was clearly an opportunity in the sense that you had a sector where essentially everyone took part in. So boys, girls, young people, whatever, everyone plays video games. But actually, when it came to the development of those video games, it was the same old story that it is in pretty much every other tech sector, i.e., not particularly diverse. Certainly when you've got 50% of girls playing video games, 50% is pretty much 50-50 in terms of playing video games and those who don't, and then that being not reflected in the actual creation of those games. So pretty standard. But as opposed to other sectors, I guess, there is that massive engagement there. So it's not like there's not a willing number of people that want to make video games.
No.
But not at all. So when we looked at that and tried to find an impartial careers and skills service for that specifically, it didn't exist. We saw lots of organizations doing kind of coding skills or getting people into IT more generally, or digital marketing, or telling you can't. There's so many of those courses around, and so many organizations doing that work, but there was nothing specifically for games at all, which was bizarre. I thought was very strange, and anything that was there was set up by recruitment agencies, or was set up in a very small way by a studio, the closest to anything national was, I guess, kind of BAFTA Young Game Designer. But even then, that was, once a year and highly focused at kind of primary school and early secondary school. Wasn't careers focused.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Is there a big misunderstanding about the computer games industry from people outside of it? Just is there the challenge that schools and parents, so careers advisors and parents and so on, are discouraging young people from going down that route, seeing it as a hobby, or as a kind of waste of talent, rather than actually what it is?
I think we can definitely say that the games industry is often viewed negatively when it comes to the media, when it comes certainly to parents. That's changed a lot. It's one of the big changes, I guess, because of the pandemic. Weirdly, it's actually been very positive for the games industry in lots of ways. Not just the fact that there's now more players, but actually because I think the power of games to bring people together, and to make people happy, not make people sad, not make people necessarily depressed. It has been highlighted, and that's been fantastic actually, and I think it's been positive in lots of different ways. So that's great, that's fantastic. But when it comes to careers, I think and information about careers, there's still quite a lot to do in schools, and I think teachers are scared of touching games to a certain extent, just in case they do it wrong, or not too sure how to implement that within their current lessons. And certainly careers advisors don't really know that much about the games industry, once again because there hasn't been anyone really around to tell them about it, and kind of demystify a little bit, which is where we're focusing a lot of our time now. It's speaking directly to careers advisors, working with schools, and really connecting the dots between industry and education, right from kind of year 7, when they're starting to think about careers. Certainly now, the Gatsby benchmarks are kind of in place pretty much, to a certain degree. There is career stuff that's going on at year 7, all the way up to past education to careers changes, career changes. So people that are in other sectors that are parallel to games, but they don't know that there's the same skills that actually they could be doing, in the games industry as they are in their current role. And, that's the quickest way really to kind of plug that diversity gap, is to take people who are already in work and
And
bring them in.
and the games industry, presumably because of its success, is growing.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
And so therefore, it'll be one of the sectors where the headcount is rising, where recruitment is buoyant.
Yeah.
And so what a time to be offering opportunities for those who've sadly lost work elsewhere.
Very much so, yeah. We are, we run a number of programs. We're running a program around virtual work experience, which kicks off next year, which, once again was in response to the pandemic, but actually was something we were thinking in terms of actually us, taking it forward. But we were talking about that before the pandemic, because, finding work experience in the games industry is very difficult. It's a very secretive industry because nobody wants to steal each other's ideas, and
Mhm.
it's quite hard to penetrate that with a 16-year-old who might only be there for a week. It's quite a lot of effort from their side, perceptively anyway, to bring young people on at that level. So it doesn't really happen very often. So we are doing a lot of work around that next year, and we've now teamed up with UKI, which is the kind of UK games trade body, to offer the Kickstart scheme to young people that would want to enter the game sector, and that could be people who have just graduated,
Mhm.
and looking for some work and are currently on universal credit. It could also be, for some of the studios, a way of really boosting diversity in a big way quite quickly. So employing people that maybe haven't been to university,
Mhm.
but can demonstrate talent in other ways through having a really solid portfolio, or however they might do that. I think even more broadly than the games industry, like, I think it's probably the most exciting time for careers and skill building that I've certainly ever seen. The focus on it across across every level, local government, businesses, schools, it's, some of this was happening before, and certainly, as I say, the kind of careers enterprise company, the enterprise advisors, all that kind of stuff, whether you think they're good or not, the conversation around careers and skills was kind of ramping up, certainly, but this has just taken it to new levels now, and there are all kinds of schemes appearing, and risky schemes, risky schemes, things that people would have discounted previously, that are coming into play, and I think that's really, really exciting. I mean, it's hard, isn't it, because you've got this dichotomy of like all these amazing schemes appearing, but of course employment, unemployment rising, but I think that I'm hoping that there'll be a point where this levels out, and actually we'll be left with just this amazing bunch of schemes which wouldn't have been there, um,
Yeah,
unless
I,
unless it's happened.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope we can, as you say, this has been a long time coming, especially those who've been sort of advocating some investment in this for a long time. But this is the moment, and government are taking this very seriously. I just hope it's not just about the quick fix. Let's get a bunch of people into jobs and then move on. This is about lifelong learning. If the Prime Minister's serious about his
Mm.
pledge to kind of change the culture of how we view upskilling and reskilling, and it's we don't have a culture that thinks you stop learning when you get to 21 and then you're set for the rest of your life. There's no more ludicrous kind of axiom out there. What a strange way for us to build an education system. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's exciting. So tell me a little bit about. I mean, you more than most, I think, have been really innovating, and responding to the challenges that the pandemic has thrown up, and you've come up with some really interesting prototype ideas to test. Tell me a little bit about those.
So yeah, when we started back in kind of April, I think it was our first kind of official response, which was a program of work called SideQuest, which was bi-weekly game jams, and a game jam is you build a video game in a certain amount of time to a certain theme. So there's lots of different jams in other sectors as well, but that's that's kind of how a game jam works, usually over a week or a weekend. And we went out to industry brought in live briefs from big video game studios, and ran these kind of regular game jams with a load of kind of content support about how to build your first game, free software from Game Maker 2, and basically a little package to help support you know. The thousands of young people that weren't doing their games course anymore, so weren't going in and doing their college course or their university course, but allowing them in a way to kind of keep up, building their skills by doing these regular little kind of mini game creation jams, and that to us was something that we concluded those in at the end of September. So we'd always said that we were going to run them for that period of time throughout the summer, and to the start of the new school year, when we hoped that schools would reopen, the colleges would reopen, and they did to a certain extent. But for us, that was fantastic, because we had hundreds and hundreds of games made. We had thousands of young people across the country building games and using the content that we've made to kind of maybe build a guild game for the first time, or come to a community of game makers that were supportive. Throughout that period as well, the studios that we'd brought in to give us themes, their staff members came and gave like careers talks on Twitch, throughout those game jam periods. So it was a really lovely package of work. And I think we pulled out kind of ideas from that during that period. So, I kind of mentioned the virtual work experience stuff before, that kind of idea of a practical challenge, a game jam over a week. We took that and said, okay, how that could work as a work experience in some way. We would need some wraparound support. What could that look like? We need to bring in things like daily stand-ups, that happen in game studios, for that week to feel like something approaching a kind of office environment. And we need to develop that kind of conversation between the studio and that young person, and make it feel like it's a kind of a practical week of work. So that kind of came directly from that game jam experience, which was great. And we managed to bring quite quickly a various bunch of colleges on board for that. We got some funding as well from Innovate UK to develop that as an idea. And then we've got some further funding next year from the UFI Trust to kind of roll that through. So I think we're doing our first test with 350 students going through that program next year in March. And then we're hoping to then make it a regular fixture for many more colleges after that in the following year, because even when the pandemic goes, there'll still be a problem around work experience that was there before. That'll be there after, so we're hoping that it's kind of kicked us up the arse a little bit to get that out there, and I think we'll be be a really big national positive program that we'll be able to run properly next year. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those two are kind of, I guess, our major responses. But us as an organization, we were quite well prepared anyway. I mean, we run a mentorship scheme, and we did that through Slack anyway, so that wasn't affected at all, through that. And we decided to make the move from kind of real world events, I guess, where we go into schools and colleges and do kind of game making sessions and all that kind of stuff. We decided to kind of move away from those events anyway in the long run, just because we were building a national organization, and we ended up spending, with the very small resources we had, whatever it is, 25% of our time working in just our local area, and it's just not possible for us to carry on doing that. And we would rather support other organizations in doing that kind of local work. And so we took over. What was a fantastic thing was that we took over. So we run something called the Video Games, so the Video Games Ambassador Network, which we run with Yuki. And that's a network of over 500 industry staff that we connect to educational opportunities up and down the country. So it's totally free. Any school or college can apply, and they can put out offers to give talks or help with game jams or whatever, and then we connect an industry staff member directly to that opportunity. And so in March, not the best time to launch that really, because all the schools and colleges shut, but it gave us a really good opportunity to test that, see if that works in a kind of slow burn way, and then also to understand that with the move to online, and giving online talks, actually it wasn't a problem at all. No. And we managed to have a huge impact quite quickly, and that it meant that the video games ambassadors that we work with could do 3 or 4 talks in the course of a month, whereas before they might only be able to do one. So it was hugely beneficial. So I can't. In terms of into game side of things, the pandemic and the kind of reactions to that have been very positive.
Well, I think it's why it's such a joy to work with you guys. Strategically, because I think you're on the front foot. It's that sense you are already thinking about this. Trying to solve some of these structural challenges that there are in this kind of alignment between industry and education, certainly in a rather misunderstood industry. And you didn't hang around, you didn't sit back, you just sort of went, okay, how do we keep moving forward? How do we keep building on the resources, the network, the goodwill, the interest that we've got? And I think that experimental approach, but one that's really kind of got a load of logic in the way that it's structured, is great, really exciting. Loads of others can learn from that. So well done.
Oh, well, I wish it had been better circumstances, frankly.
Sure.
But we are where we are, and as I say, I think we are an incredibly exciting time for skills and careers in general, and a level of communication between different careers advisors, schools, businesses, the amount of really actually positive group meetings that I've been into, in the last 6 months has exponentially increased. I feel like everyone's very good at Zoom now and doing online meetings, and you can get to the nub of things much more quickly.
Much quicker, yeah. There's less time spent on unmuting people.
Exactly. Yeah, completely. So I think just generally, everything's moving more quickly, or people are communicating better, which is weird, I think, because you'd think that moving from face-to-face communication to kind of digital video kind of chat communication would mean there'd be problems or a drop, or drop in quality or whatever, but that hasn't happened at all. I think everybody's fantastically good at it now, and things can happen much more quickly and much faster, and that's what we need right now.
Definitely. Well, good luck with the next phase, and thanks
for talking very much. No, it's a pleasure. No, it's a pleasure talking. And it goes without saying that we're always absolutely chuffed to be working with Always Possible as ever, and working on those projects and working with you gives us the support to be able to do all of these kind of fantastic stuff, especially when we're a small team. So yeah, thank you.
No, pleasure.